Today's lesson is on 4 sound devices. Now, it is very important that you remember that sound devices are sometimes called figures of speech, but they are in a slightly different category in the sense that they are exactly what we said, they are sound devices. It has to do with how the word sounds. It's not comparing something or contrasting something. It is a sound device. So, it is also called a musical device. And you can see that it has to do with your sense of hearing. And also to remember, it has to do with how it sounds. In other words, it's phonetic. You must hear the sound. It's not how the word is spelt necessarily, but it's the sounds that you hear when you say that letter or that word. It has to do with that. So it's not the spelling, it's the sound. Please remember that from the outset. So the first one we're going to have a look at is alliteration. Now, alliteration, I'm sure you've all heard about it. It has to do with consonants. You all know that. Consonant. We are distinguishing between consonant and consonance later on. So the consonant sounds as opposed to vowel sounds, right? That's what I mean by consonant. So you think of consonant when you think of alliteration, and you think of consonants at the beginning of words. In a nutshell, alliteration, right? Remember that. It's the consonant sounds at the beginning of the word being repeated in close proximity. That's it. So it's words near to each other, in close proximity. They begin with the same consonant sound. That's alliteration. So let us look at an example or two here. A cold coming, we had of it. So there you've got it. Cold coming, we had of it. Right? Now consonants, as I say, have specific sounds. This is a plosive sound, the cold. You can almost hear the crispness of the cold. The hard, the crisp C sounds suggests the cold weather. A cold coming, we had of it. So that crispness of the cold suggested by the C's. Here we've got another one. The summer palaces on slopes, the silken girls bringing sherbet. Here we've got alliteration as well, but when you do refer to it in an exam or in a test, when the consonant sound that we are referring to is a hissing sound, like S, like S or sh. Even the sh are hissing sounds. We call it sibilance, right? We call it sibilance. But sibilance is alliteration of the S and the sh sounds, the hissing sounds. Sibilance is alliteration as well. So normally it also has a great effect within a poem or so. It can suggest all sorts of things. Normally when you hear the sounds, like let's say there's a snake involved, or you can virtually hear the snake slithering, doing things and being sort of just poisonous, and they're almost ominous sounds, right? So the alliterative sibilant sounds suggest the luxury of the life they left behind. So what are we talking about here? We are giving you an example from the Journey of the Magi that you might have studied or heard about. The summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. So what we have here is basically in contrast to some other parts of the poem where they say we had a cold coming, and the journey and how hard it was. And then they started thinking, oh dear, did we make a mistake? And they thought back to the terraces and the silken girls. And we've got the alliteration here suggesting. So it is the S's or the consonants at the beginning of words. That's alliteration. However, I want to mention this now because I'm going to come back to this in a minute or so. Look how also here we have an S, here we have an S, we have an S, we have an S. Can you see that there are S sounds also, or consonant sounds also, further on in the word, or at the end of the word, for instance? Now, if you are asked to identify alliteration, now listen very carefully, you must only identify the consonant at the beginning of the word. That is alliteration. You cannot go and underline this is, that is, etc. Because the moment you start doing that, you're moving into the realm of another figure of speech, and that is consonance. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But alliteration, the first consonant letters. So if you're asked to identify, please just, you are to underline them, and you underline only the first consonant letters that are repeated. Important to remember that. And also important to remember that sibilance is when you have the S, right? So, assonance has to do with vowels. I suppose you know that as well. Vowel sounds that are repeated. In the same way as consonants are repeated. Vowel sounds are repeated, and that is assonance. And again, it's repetition, and it's a close repetition of similar or identical vowels without the repetition of consonants. So in other words, it is just vowel sounds. They don't need to be enclosed with the same consonants. It's just the vowel sounds themselves. Let's look at this. Who knows where the cold wind blows? Now, also be very careful. Don't fall into a trap. You have to identify the assonants. You've got O, O. Remember what I said. It is a sound that is important. It is the sound. So in other words, O and O, right? The whiz and the whiz is not important. It needn't be there, but the O's are important. The nose and the blows. Now you might ask yourself, okay, but I see another O and I see another O. Oh dear, I see another O. Nose, cold, blows. Is that also assonance? Yes, it has to do because the O and the O and the O are similar sounding. The other letters O don't have the same sound, so that's not part of your assonance. If you go and underline those, you're not going to get the marks, right? Then we've got the throws. Although it is spelt differently, the sound is the same. Once again, I remind you, the sound. It's about the sound that you hear, right? So the throws will go with blows, cold, O, right? And we've got repose. Is that part of your assonance? Yes. So you have it. It's only the sound that is important. So here is another example. The spider skins lie on their sides, translucent and ragged, their legs drying. So we've got an I there and a Y here, but the sounds are the same. Spider, drying. Not that I, because it doesn't sound the same. Do you understand? So it's only the ones that sound, lie, that IE, that I, and that Y. Those are the vowel sounds that you need to underline if you are to identify the assonance. Fine. Now we've got something that we call consonance, and it's what I said I'm going to refer to later on, when you also have the alliterative sound that you had at the beginning of words for alliteration, but the sounds also occur sometimes at the end of the word or in the middle of the word. It is there. Now, important to remember that while this has to do with consonant sounds as well, it also has to do with assonance. But the consonant sounds will now occur in other places of the word as well, not only at the beginning. And there might also be a repetition of vowel sounds. But the key aspect in terms of consonance, look at the spelling, consonance, is harmony. It is actually a musical term. Do you remember? Where am I? We talked about how musical these terms are. It is actually a musical term which has to do with harmony. It's harmonious sounds. You create harmony through the use of sounds. Now, it is the opposite of that would be dissonance, where you'll have cacophonous sounds that are not pleasing at all. So harmony, harmonious sounds. So there's harmony among components. There is correspondence or recurrence of consonant sounds, but I said not only in the beginning, in other places too, and usually at the end or in between. Fine. So let's have a look at a few instances of consonance. It's a very beautiful figure of speech. It has lovely effects. So here's just a common example. We've got an L there, Luke and Penelope. Can you see here? The L is in the beginning of the word. And elegant, lovely, elopement. Can you see all those L's? And we've got also the E's that create harmony there. But look at how the consonants are spread, not only at the beginning, so it's not alliteration. It is consonance. So if you look at it and you read it, you're going to get the harmonious sounds. Luke and Penelope's elegant and lovely elopement. See? Harmony. Here is one of my most favorite examples of consonants. The grape will redden on your fingers, holding your glass of wine. It comes from Autumn by Roy Campbell. And we sit in front of the fire and you have this glass of red wine in your hand. The fire is at the back there and it shines through the crystal and it reddens your finger. And it says, the grape will redden on your fingers through the lit crystal of the cup. So listen to this. Through the lit crystal. Look at the L's. It's just a short example, but look at the L's that are repeated at the beginning and at the end. Lit crystal. Look then also how the T sounds crystal. And also the C sound there and the C sound there. Can you see how these consonants and vowels are used very cleverly together to create this beautiful harmonious feeling in front of the fire through the lit crystal of the cup. Very beautiful. Then alliteration and consonance. Let's look at how they can work together. You can see they very often do. I saw a chapel all of gold that none did dare to enter in, and many weeping stood without, weeping, mourning, worshipping. Is that alliteration? Yes. But look at the P sounds. P's, weeping, etc. How the P's are also repeated, but in consonance, while the W's are repeated in alliteration. And then used together, it gives us a sense of harmony, and it creates a certain mood. They were weeping, mourning, and worshipping, right? Fine, and then we get to onomatopoeia, something that you've also heard about, and what do? I mean, they help us to visualize the scene. If you hear the word meow, you visualize a cat, right? And the roar, you visualize a lion. Chirp, chirpa, chirpa, cheep, cheep, the little birds, and oink, the pig. So onomatopoeia is very often used to give us animal sounds, and also in words like the plop of water. Can you hear the onomatopoeic effect it has? And the tick-tock, where the word resembles the actual sound made. Let us look at an example here from Mort de Arthur, an old poem by Lord Tennyson. And answer made the bold Sir Bedivere. I heard the ripple washing in the reeds, and the wild water lapping on the crag. So what do we have here? We have lapping, lapping. Can you hear that the sound imitates the word imitates the sound? And even washing and the ripple. Those are all words with onomatopoeic resonances. We're not going to look at the alliteration here. Those are the onomatopoeic sounds we're talking about. Another one, small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and tongues chattering. It's clear to see the onomatopoeia there. Let's test your knowledge very quickly. Only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. And that is, of course, from Anthem for Doomed Youth. And we'll look at it quickly. The stuttering, can you see the onomatopoeia? The rifle's rapid rattle, can you see how that also has an onomatopoeic effect? But it's alliteration and can patter. And we've also got the A's there in terms of the assonance. And in each slow dusk, the drawing down of blinds. So here we've got the sibilant sounds repeated, but it's not at the beginning of words, so it is an instance of consonance. But we've got alliteration here with drawing down. And of course, then the bells, bells, bells. What a tale their story tells. We've got the more a rhyming effect here, but really an instance of what a tale, their terror tells, alliteration, but also consonance, and how they clang and clash and roar. Can you see how that is onomatopoeia? Here also a bit of consonance, just very quickly. This is all big one, run online. We can see there's an S and a S, and then we've got the S there. You can immediately see, and then we've got the W there, and then the way winding. So we've got a combination here of alliteration and of assonance, where the consonants go to the back or to the middle, and then used together to give us a harmonious effect, and that is, of course, consonance. And that is it for today.